What's going on, everybody? I am here to do a review for the movie Blue Beetle. Now, this is a movie that was on my radar when I first heard about it, but I wasn't overly excited about it, mainly because I didn't know anything about this character at all. As a matter of fact, I could have had opportunities to go and do some research on the character, but I chose not to because I wanted to go in there as a casual viewer. You know, when I've reviewed so many comic book movies on my channel in the past where I've known more about the characters because of the development over the time, or maybe I knew about them from watching the cartoon as a kid or what have you. But this was a character that I didn't know too much about. I didn't do much research into it, so I went in as a general viewer, and I must say that DC might actually have a win on their hands with this particular character, or with this particular movie that could spawn possibly into a franchise if it continues to go forward and they do it right. So to really get into all of everything, basically the movie Blue Beetle is about this young man who's 22 years old by the name of Jaime Reyes, who lives in this place called Palmyra City with his family. He's coming home from being in law school, and I like the continuity there because in the movie he's wearing a hoodie that says Gotham Law. So is okay, so we see that they have the continuity there and the connection there. You know, we know when you hear Gotham, you think of Bruce Wayne, Batman, and all the characters there, and he's basically coming home for, I don't know if he's coming home for the semester or he's coming home for the summer. It looks like it may be for the summer, after completing his time there at Gotham Law. And he's with his family. They live in this it's kind of a rundown neighborhood. They don't have all the money in the world. They come from a very poor background, so where they pretty much all have each other. So he's living in this small house with him, his sister, his dad, his mother, his grandmother, and his uncle, and they all live in this area where it's just completely really run down. But when it's run down like that and they all live in a home together, all they really have is family. And then he finds out that financially the family is not doing well, because he finds out that they lost the family business, and he also finds out that his dad is having some health issues, because he finds out that his dad recently had a heart attack, but they didn't want him to worry too much about it, so they didn't tell him, you know, so he could throw off his studies, because it's almost like the family is kind of relying on him to really make it with law if he decides to go that direction, so they can come out of poverty. But then a lot of other things kind of take effect, and then of course things don't go that way. So basically he ends up having to get a job, him and his sister, working for this woman named Victoria Cord, who runs this place called Cord Industries. I believe it is called Cord Industries, that basically makes a bunch of high-tech things that the military is going to try to use to advance their military, you know, so they can take easier precaution or better precaution when it comes to threats, or at least that's what they like to say. But you know, it's always some kind of ulterior motive on the back end. Then all of a sudden, you know, he ends up running into this woman named Jennifer Cord, who is the niece of Victoria, and she basically tries to help Jaime out with getting another job, because he ends up getting fired from the one he was working at. And then that's when stuff starts to take a turn, because Jenny is like the more level-headed person of that Cord industry. Like you wouldn't think she's part of them because she's not corrupt like her aunt is. She ends up taking something called the Scarab, and the Scarab is basically some technology that's not of this world that helps to power up the suit that Jaime actually ends up getting, because the Scarab attaches itself to him because it shows him, and then that's how you get what you see right here on the screen. And that's when he ends up becoming what would later become known as the Blue Beetle, because it doesn't have a name at this point, right? At this point right here, at least not in this part of the movie. And of course he's like freaking out. He doesn't know what's going on. Of course anybody would, because like you have something that just latches to your face, and all of a sudden this alien tech just starts to become a part of you, and you don't know what it is that you're doing. And what I thought was very interesting is that the tech that attaches to him and turns him into what will become Blue Beetle is that it literally talks to him. It has attached to, it's not like a thing that can come off and say, you know, detach from his body, and he can just put it back on whenever he wants to. It has literally become integrated into his body system, meaning it's connected to his brain. So the Scarab, once it attached itself to him, it's literally a part of him now, to the point where if he was to detach the Scarab from his body, he would end up dying, That's basically how serious this is. So the scarab is now literally part of his system, and if he removes it, he'll die, or they'll have to kill him first and then take the scarab from his body, and good luck doing that. So I thought that was very interesting because I didn't know how it actually worked. I thought it was going to be like an Iron Man type of thing where you have the tech talking to him through the suit and he could take the suit off. Of course, he still has the arc reactor attached to him, but this is in his system, like it's in his body, and it's literally there permanently for the rest of his life because they can't find anything. They try to see if they can find something to remove it, but they can't find anything to remove it without him, you know, being killed or it killing him in order to do it. But when you think about what this suit can actually do, I wouldn't even want this. I would be glad to have this because this suit is actually pretty dope, and I like how they made it. It looks practical when it looked practical, and even when it was CGI, it looked CGI. And let me get on the CGI right quick. The CGI in this movie was actually very good because for a movie to have the budget that it did, and I think the movie only had like a $150 million budget, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can correct me if I am indeed wrong. This movie's budget was actually less than the last DC movie that came out, which of course was the trash Flash. And based on what I've heard, because I didn't watch the movie, the CGI in that movie was absolutely horrible, where that had a much bigger budget, where this movie had a lesser budget and the CGI looked pretty damn good for what they had to work with for what would be considered a lower budget superhero flick, because most superhero movies tend to be, of course, more big budgeted, more giant scale because of what they have to work with. But I can tell that they had practical effects in this movie as well. It wasn't completely overly CGI'd. The acting from everybody was incredible. I think that the main actor was a good choice to pick to play this. Now, I don't watch Cobra Kai, but I do know that the main actor is on that show, and I think this is his first big role, and what a way to really knock it out of the park. And one thing that I liked is that they chose an actor that is only fairly known on a lower register as far as how people know him, as far as a fan base. But if this movie does well, I have a feeling he's going to grow from here, and if they allow this franchise to go forward and he continues with it, then he'll definitely his star will continue to rise. He was very convincing as a young man who like literally is all family oriented. You know, when he sold you on him being scared and freaked out when he gets this suit, doesn't know how it works. You can tell that he was enjoying having the suit to protect him, and when the fighting capabilities came in and the weapons and everything, I thought that was dope. This suit is really incredible because it literally tells him whatever you imagine I can create. So he can imagine anything. It kind of reminds you of Green Lantern, how Green Lantern can create anything based on that ring. This kind of puts me in the ballpark of that, but it's through technology, whereas Green Lantern is more alien oriented. This could very well be alien tech as well, but you know, Green Lantern, that's another thing. Ironically, Green Lantern is DC as well. Keep it going forward, they may cross paths, I don't know. But I like the fact that this suit can create and spawn anything that whatever like I said, whatever you imagine, I can create. And that's exactly what it did. And the weapons that it shows is like something you would never see ever. Like, of course, realistically, you will probably never see anything like that in your life. And I thought it was just really dope. I liked the family dynamic that they had, how it was very family oriented, how the family came together to help each other out when it came to this. Sometimes that could hinder a movie such as this, because then it's like, okay, you don't want to turn your main character, who was a superhero or would go on to be a superhero, into a side character, even though the family dynamic is there. And I like that they really didn't do that, and the fact that they were able to bring the family in there in the aspect of where can we put them at where they're needed, but they're not in the way at the same time. And I think if they did that, then that would have probably took myself out of the movie, because it's like you don't want to sideline your main character, especially since this is their first movie, and a lot of people such as myself are getting introduced to who this person is, and we want to see them grow and to continue going forward from here. The acting from the rest of the supporting cast was very good. Everyone pretty much played the part that they were supposed to play. You know, it wasn't like they were overdoing it or anything like that. I think it's a little something in there for everybody to really enjoy. It's definitely a family oriented movie. It definitely has some stakes there. I can see that they kind of pushed the envelope there a little bit, but you know, DC is known to tend to do that on some of their movies, not all of them, like that last one that came out. But all in all, I really actually did enjoy this movie. The villain was very good as well. It definitely had, you know, some backstory there with the villain, because sometimes, and Marvel tends to have an issue with this, is they have a villain problem, but DC, that's usually where they tend to get their villains correct. One thing I will say is that the villain that he was fighting, I didn't catch his name. I don't know if they said it in the movie or not, but if they didn't, that's kind of like a issue for me, because it's like, who was this person? Their suit looked dope, but who were they actually fighting is what I would like to know. That's the part that probably got me right there. I didn't know this character's name. I mean, we knew his real name, but he didn't have a villain name when he finally got his suit, or his suit got upgraded, rather, I should say, because he already kind of had a suit, but it got upgraded when something happened in the movie. Now, by now, in case y'all haven't seen it, or maybe you didn't know about it, Afro Elite and myself and Cool Colas had a podcast, or did a podcast episode a few weeks ago, where we were talking about this movie and how they were worried about the box office with the numbers, because they feel like the numbers were probably going to be low for this movie. I don't know where the box office is going to sit, but we were talking about how they, when we was bringing up Black Panther, and how many people in the Latino, or, you know, as I like to call it, the South of the Borderian community, had made some comments when the first Black Panther came out. I'm not going to go into a whole diatribe about it. I'll leave the link to the podcast down below if you want to listen to it, if you haven't listened to it or checked it out already. But to the people in that community, this is your opportunity right now to show up and show out the way Black people did for Black Panther. I hate that I had to bring that up, but it is what it is. This is your opportunity to shine right there, because of course the cast was pretty much majority Mexican, which fits the story, because that's what the Blue Beetle character is. It was only one PC individual in the movie, as far as I could tell, and they were the villain. Like, they were like the main villain. So it's up to y'all if y'all want to see stuff like this going forward, because y'all been begging for it, y'all been asking for it. So this is really on you. Like I said, I had every intention to watch it. I didn't know, again, what to expect coming into this movie, but I actually really did enjoy it, and I would like to see this character go forward. I believe this is the first movie not under James Gunn as something James Gunn made, but under his new DC EU that's post everything that Zack Snyder did prior to this. The only other concern I had was that, and this is dealing with another movie, is the fact that they're releasing Aquaman 2 at the end of the year. And it's like, if this was supposed to be the beginning of the new DCEU, why would you release this first and then Aquaman? It would have made sense to release Aquaman 2 first and then this, considering Aquaman, that version of him anyway, is under the old DCEU, under aka Zack Snyder's DC, as far as him with his Justice League characters. I'm still puzzled as to why they made that decision, because I personally would have released this in December in Aquaman spot, and have Aquaman release in this spot in August. But that's just personally how I would have did it. I don't know what the rhyme or reason to why they decided to make that move. I won't find out about it, because I don't plan on seeing that Aquaman movie. I kept telling people, if Amber Heard is in that movie, you can count me out. But then that movie is on shaky ground anyway, because it's had so many reshoots to the point where I don't think many people care anymore. It's one of those, it's gotten to the point where it's a toss away movie, which is sad, because that movie did make, the first one anyway, made over $1 billion, which I believe was DC's first $1 billion film. But it is what it is. But all in all, I really actually did enjoy Blue Beetle. It actually surpassed my expectations, which were kind of at a mid-level. I wasn't overly excited, again, because it was a character that I wasn't too familiar with, but I actually really did enjoy the movie overall. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments. Is this a movie that you would check out, or is this one you would probably say, oh, I'll just either pass on it or wait till it comes on streaming and I'll check it out then? And I will talk to you in the next one.